Hello, it's me, Sweetie, and thank you for being here for another video that I am not excited to film today. Yeah, just to be really honest with you guys, I do not want to be making this video. I don't want to be making it, I'm not excited to be making it, and in fact, I've actually pushed this video out and out and out for probably the last month and a half. And that is because the video I am filming today is in relation to the book Lolita. Really quick, I would like to give a trigger warning surrounding this book that I will very lightly be talking about in this video. It is just a general framework for what I'm going to be talking about. I will not be going into great detail about any of these subjects, but it will be mentioned. And in case the topics of P-words and child predators upsets you or triggers you, maybe click off this video. Now, if you've spent any amount of time in the Lolita fashion community, you are probably aware of this piece of literature. It is unfortunate that we share a name relation with this book, and quite frankly, quite a few people in the general public like to try to make a connection between this fashion from Japan and this English novel. And because it affects our community so much, or at least it has for such a long time, I have wanted to read the book and make a video on it just on different topics, maybe different talking points, a synopsis of the book, something educational that could benefit our community in some way. However, after reading the book, I literally did everything I could to not have to film this video. However, I think it's really important to push through things that make us uncomfortable and get through the discomfort. Also, I said I would do a review on this book, and I'm gonna hold myself to my word, so let's just get into it. I do want to say my content is usually very fun and uplifting, so if you want to just stick around for more kawaii fun content, please feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. I post new kawaii content for you guys every Monday and Thursday. But if you do happen to like this video while you're watching, also feel free to hit that thumbs up button down below. It really helps me out. So kind of getting back to my original intent with this video and reading this book, I wanted to read it to hopefully give you guys some talking points, whether it's on the internet or in person. Thankfully, I've never had anyone come up to me in person or interact with me on the internet making assertions about this connection with the book, but just in case you had ever been put in that situation, I was trying to think of how I could help you out in that way. And also just for myself, I wanted to read the book and make note of any comparisons, or rather lack thereof, between the book and the fashion. Because if people are making these assertions, maybe some of it has to be true, right? I just wanted to go in looking for information so that I can make decisions for myself and maybe help educate some other people out there. I truly thought I had a grasp on what would be waiting for me inside these pages. I thought I understood enough what I was getting myself into when I decided to read this book, and I really couldn't have been more wrong. It was not even close to what I was expecting as far as awfulness and depravity, and so my intent of taking notes, making comparisons, doing an analysis very quickly fell to the wayside and instead shifted to me just trying to get to the next paragraph of this story. I made the decision that instead of doing an educational, professional analysis about this book, I was just gonna be angry, because I think there is a lot of content out there already about this and how to analyze it and how to have talking points, and how there's no relation from more of an educational, academic standpoint. But I also think it's valid and important for us as a part of the Lolita fashion community to be angry about this horrifying comparison and topic that is being projected onto us. So I think that's my intent with this video, is just to express the anger that I have that something so heinous as what is inside these pages is being projected upon something that couldn't be further away from what this is. And I want us to be able to share those feelings together, and hopefully I can say some things and make some points that you can understand and relate to, and we can just kind of vibe in our anger together maybe. So because this video is about a book, I will talk about the book very briefly. And so when I titled this video, I read Lolita so that you don't have to, I really meant that. I don't want any of y'all to read this book. I don't want anyone to have to read this book, quite frankly. It was very hard to get through. It kept me up at night. And at the end of it, I didn't feel like I was better for having read it. I really thought that when I came to the end and after digesting everything within the story, I thought that I would feel some kind of like, I'm glad that I did that for myself. I'm glad that I went through that. I feel like I learned something or I've bettered myself in some kind of way. No, I didn't feel any of that. The only thing I gained from reading this was several stomach aches and a new way to feel mad. Now, obviously, if I haven't made it clear at this point, the details within this story are highly disturbing. I feel like that's a word that incites a very specific feeling, and it's very accurate. On several occasions through reading this book, I almost put it down for good. I honestly felt wrong for reading it. I felt like I shouldn't be reading this, like should this even exist? Like, how is it that I'm like reading these words and processing them through my brain? It was disturbing. There's no other way to put it. And something that I've casually observed just from society around this as a talking point is that there are really two perspectives about this story. Just to give like the most brief basic synopsis I can muster up, it's a story about a man, the narrator, his name is Humbert, and he has a predatory P-word relationship with a child named Dolores, who he then nicknames Lolita. Lolita as a word is originally just a nickname for the name Dolores. So the two perspectives of this story is one, that Humbert is a P-word, he is a predator. He predatorizes Dolores, R-words her, kidnaps her, pretty much any amount of awfulness you can imagine he enacts on this child. The other perspective is that Dolores, a child, purposefully and knowingly baits and traps Humbert into a sexual relationship with her. And mind you, even the author himself has made it publicly clear that he completely disagrees with the narrator, Humbert's perspective that Dolores has lured him knowingly into this relationship. So the fact that anyone else out there can make that assertion, well, I don't know what else to say about that. But I say this just to make it clear to you that this is more or less where the connection comes from, as far as when people hear the term Lolita relating to our fashion, their mind immediately goes to this deranged archetype of a child who is precociously, sexually enticing, inviting, luring adults in for that kind of relationship. And if any of those people had even read the book, that would be completely obvious from reading the book, which is a perfect segue into my next point. Let's talk about why I'm pissed. So my anger really stems from a few things. Number one, the content of the story, obviously. And like I mentioned, despite the fact that the author himself does not agree with the male narrator of the story who victimizes Dolores, it is still very hard not to get angry when reading the words within the book. Obviously, this topic is very triggering. It was for me, it was very upsetting. As I mentioned, it physically made me ill to read this book. I had to put it down several times. I lost sleep over it. And when I really start to think about it past the point of just being like disgusted, I truly wonder what part of this story like adds anything to society. And I realize you could say that about a lot of things, probably a lot of books in general. However, just because of how detailed the story is, and I need to warn you, if you do intend to try to read this book, it is very detailed in ways that you don't want it to be. I just truly felt like I gained absolutely nothing positive from this book. I guess you could say that bringing attention to these kind of predatory situations, maybe looking out for something, maybe being able to look out for more insidious underlying social cues or behaviors from people that could be predatorizing children. I guess that's maybe the only thing you could glean from this that would be positive. But even so, there are much more succinct, concise, sanitized ways to be made aware of those things, rather than reading through 300 plus pages of horror just to get that kind of information. Number two, it's the people that try to connect our fashion with this book. And the first part of that is just being angry at the fact that someone would like go out of their way to harass and accost people that wear a fashion like this. Like, how are you gonna come up to or approach someone that looks like this and be mean to them? But more so, it's the fact that if these people who are asserting these connections and saying with their whole chest that these are the same thing, it's related, this fashion is because of this book, if they had actually read the literature from which they are trying to draw from, they wouldn't be able to make that connection at all. Because if you went through the mental gymnastics of trying to get past each page of this book, trying to relate it to a cute pastel frilly fashion from Japan would be the last thing on your mind. And I know there are people out there that really just have something missing in their lives and they're very twisted, very negative. But I really try to tell myself that those people out there are very far and few between, and that most people will act with logic and compassion. And I also feel like, unfortunately, a lot of people will see something, a headline, some very strongly asserted point on the internet, and they'll just agree with it, go along with it, assume it must be true. But to be able to debunk these connections that people try to make themselves, they would have to read this. And to be honest, I feel like most people don't want to read this. And so for people who don't have the balls to read a horrifying story like this, to go and make such assertions just really makes my blood boil. And who knows, maybe I'm just like an overly sensitive weenie that was like really affected by this book far beyond what the normal person would be. The subject matter alone is a deterrent for obvious reasons. And so people just decide to accept what they've heard somebody else say in a loud voice, rather than going to the subject matter and trudging through a horrifying story to find the truth. And the third reason is really focused on us, our community. As Lolitas that have to deal with this conversation, this topic in general, it really makes me angry that despite the misinformation and the lack of accountability that people have to research this topic themselves, it gets put onto us. So not only are people's misinterpretations, lack of integrity, lack of ability to truly empathize and get to the root of a situation projected onto us, but it is then our responsibility to educate them. And truly it's not actually our responsibility, but who else is going to do it? We either protect our energy, move on, realize that some people, some things are just a lost cause, or we get into it. We try to understand the truth of this and help teach other people that truth as well. And with as much as doing that affected me, I don't want any of the rest of you to have to do that or feel like you have to do that like I felt. And I think it is just a real shame that because this book exists, something so positive and empowering for people all across the world that love and wear this fashion has such a shadow cast over it by this. Now, in the scheme of things, at least for myself as a Lolita, I really try not to focus on this aspect of, what we have to deal with. I'm far more interested in cultivating an uplifting, positive community that focuses on our bonds with each other, having fun, feeling creative, feeling that self-expression. But this is always going to be there in the corner of probably all of our minds. And so I hope that you can come here to this channel, get some positivity, get some creativity flowing, but also know that this is a place where we can come together and feel our feelings, express our anger for the parts of this community and this fashion that are hard. And I think one thing that this has taught me is that I can do hard things that I don't want to do. I'm sitting here filming this right now, aren't I? So I really want to take this platform and this opportunity to talk about more things within this fashion that hide in the corners and should be talked about more openly. So I hope you'll be interested in that when I am able to do that someday. But for now, that's going to be it for this video, guys. I really appreciate you sitting down and letting me rant to you. I hope that maybe this was cathartic for both of us if you're watching this, and I hope you'll stick around for some more positive, fun videos in the future. Well, I am actually running late for a hair appointment. I had to wear a wig today because my roots are insane, so I am going to run out the door to that. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!